If you're watching this video, you either know what a Bloody Mary challenge is, or you've come to find out exactly what it is. This old story comes from many different countries and has many different legends. The basic challenge is to go into a place where there's a mirror, throw water on the mirror while repeating the words Bloody Mary while being in total darkness. Talk about putting yourself in a scary situation. There's probably no telling how many of these challenges have been done since the inception of the game, or challenge. And while usually nothing happens, except you end up scaring yourself silly, sometimes some really crazy things do happen. With that said, join us as we check out these 5 Bloody Mary challenges that mysteriously worked. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5! This first story begins with a girl named Christina, who was visiting her friend Maria when she was a 7th grader after a school day. It was around 6 p.m. when Maria and her mother ended up going to the corner market to buy something real quick. Christina said that she was fine there alone and decided to stay behind and watch a movie. After watching half the movie, she got bored. The time was around 6:45 and she decided to do something that wasn't meant to be toyed around with: Bloody Mary. Christina had heard all of the stories before and she thought that the majority of the stories were really stupid. She learned how to play it by reading stories. She then stepped onto the cold tile of the bathroom floor and looked at herself in the mirror. At this point, she remembered looking at herself in the mirror as she started to daydream and went into some kind of daze. She ended up snapping out of it and remembered what she was doing. She turned off the lights, turned off her mobile phone, and just had candles and the mirror in front of her. She then turned off the lights and took the lighter out of her pocket and lit the candles. She set one candle in the corner of the sink and another in front of the mirror just below it, and the third one she held right below her but in front of her face. She stared in the mirror and started to slowly say Bloody Mary, but it took her about 30 seconds just to say bloody as she was getting kinda scared and trying not to wimp out. In fact, something told her to stop, but she refused to listen to her inner voice. She wanted to know what she would look like and if this whole Bloody Mary thing was real. After the first time that she said Bloody Mary, she started feeling hot, as if her skin was gonna melt or burst into flames. She suddenly thought about the horror stories and all the things that happened to them. She suddenly saw a spark behind her as if someone were flicking a lighter or striking a match. She was about to say her third Mary when she suddenly felt sick and dizzy, and she was very hot and now shaking. It was at this point that she could barely stand up when she very slowly said bloody, and a sharp, piercing cold wind and chill came across her. Everything happened so quickly, but then, suddenly, out of nowhere, she noticed an ugly figure in the corner of the shower. The shower curtain had moved, but she had not noticed. The face of the figure was cracked, pale, and had thin lips, dark eyebrows, and black hair. But the really terrifying thing is that this figure was bleeding from its eyes. The ordeal finally ended when her friend Maria opened the door and asked her what she was doing. She explained everything and the family moved out a month later. Number 4. This story is about an 8-year-old girl who went away to a summer camp in the Pacific Northwest on an island called Anacortes. Everyone was assigned to a cabin, which was somewhat dirty and disgusting and looked like no one had cleaned them in a long time. Apparently, the cabin smelled like mold and there were spiders in the beds. The girl wanted to run home as soon as she entered the cabin, but her parents wouldn't have this. One night, her and her new bunkmates, or cabin mates, all went to the bathroom a few buildings down to get ready for bed. There were 6 of them. They were all giggling and running around in the dark. It was so dark that the only way they could see was from a small flashlight that one of the girls brought. The group finally made it to the bathroom and were starting to freak out each other. Apparently, the bathroom wasn't in much better shape than the cabins, and one of the girls came up with the idea to play the game Bloody Mary. One of the girls was quick to agree, and the other 4 girls didn't want to be labeled scaredy cats, so they all nodded their heads yes and said they were in. The girl who brought the flashlight then turned off the lights inside of the bathroom and switched off her flashlight, so that the only light coming into the bathroom was from the lights of the cabins that were nearby. The girl with the flashlight suddenly became scared, but one of the other girls wasn't scared at all, and smiled and went straight to the mirror. The other girls huddled behind her as she looked in the mirror and said Bloody Mary 3 times, and then they waited. The girls were about to laugh the whole thing off since nothing happened, and then, suddenly, the mirror cracked right in front of their eyes. The other girls ran out of the bathroom as fast as they could, screaming, but the girl who was in front of the mirror was unable to move. She was frozen. The girl said she felt like her legs were paralyzed and she couldn't stop staring at the crack in the mirror. She said she felt that the crack was there the entire time, but had just barely noticed it. She then tried to calm down and then, in the flash of a second, saw something move in the mirror as if there was someone standing right behind her. The girl's legs unfroze, and she ran as fast as she could to get back to her cabin, falling down several times in the pitch black darkness of the forest and scraping her knees. The next morning, the friends were all laughing and talking about the whole ordeal, but the girl who told the story didn't speak about it for 10 years. That is, until now. Number 3. This next experience is about a young girl that attended many sleepover parties. During the sleepover parties, many of these girls would play the game Bloody Mary. Of course, when they were small children, this never worked for them. Until one day, one of the girls visited her best friend from first grade, who she had had these sleepover parties with. They were reminiscing and talking about the old times, the things they would do as children, and they somehow got on the topic of playing Bloody Mary. They talked about how it was stupid and how it never worked, and so they decided to play the game just for old time's sake. The two went into the bathroom and closed the door, turning the lights off. The bathroom had no windows at all, so it was pitch black inside. The two held hands and began repeating Bloody Mary. They weren't sure about the number of times that they said it, but they believe it was around 10 times when they suddenly saw something appear in the mirror. However, it wasn't the face of Bloody Mary at all. Instead, inside the mirror was a green triangle. The triangle started out small but grew larger in size. Of course, by the time they stopped repeating Bloody Mary and just watched in amazement as the triangle continued to grow, the two were not afraid. Instead, they were more intrigued by the triangle that they were seeing in the mirror. They stood there for about 30 seconds just staring at the triangle when all of a sudden something grabbed the arm of one of the girls and she screamed. The girl's friends started to scream too, and they turned on the light, opened the door, and ran out of the bathroom. The interesting thing about this story is that the two girls just looked at each other and asked each other if they had seen anything. It turns out they both saw the green triangle, and they also both felt someone grab their arms. They decided to close the bathroom door and not go in it for the rest of the night. Number 2. This next story is about a boy, his cousin, and his sister who decided to play Bloody Mary in the basement washroom of their house. This particular spot in the house was very creepy to begin with, so it made the perfect place to play such a frightening game. The three gathered into the washroom, lit their candles, and turned off the lights and stared into the mirror. The oldest of the three didn't believe in Bloody Mary and decided to just play along. All three of them began to chant Bloody Mary over and over until the third time. They waited for a minute, but nothing happened. The oldest one, who didn't believe in Bloody Mary, decided to scare the other two by screaming. This scared the other two children very badly, of course. A few days later, after doing this, the oldest child would go back down to the washroom to clean up a few things when he noticed blood around the bathroom sink. No one ever used the bathroom, so the oldest child asked his sister if she was playing a joke, to which she replied no. The boy was shocked and thought that it was maybe his parents or there was some other explanation for the blood. But then, about a month later, creepy things started happening. The family's pet started making loud noises for no reason, and doors would open on their own. Closet doors would suddenly close, and things started to end up missing around the home. However, these missing things would end up being found in the basement. The older child now says that sometimes he looks in the mirror and can see a girl who's wearing a white dress with long black hair covering her face. Bloody Mary. Number 1. This next and last story is about a 13-year-old girl and her friends. They were at school and didn't want to go to their gym class, so they decided to hide in the best place they could, the school's gym bathroom. However, the teens hid so well that a teacher locked them inside the gym bathroom, leaving the girls trapped there. Of course, they became bored and somewhere in that bathroom decided to play Bloody Mary. The group had said Bloody Mary a few times, but nothing had happened. A few days later, back at school, the girls decided this time that they better just go to gym class. However, one of the girls heard someone call her name from across the gym, but no one was there. A few days later, the same girl woke up in the middle of the night feeling as though someone was watching her. Then, suddenly, all her blankets were ripped off her and left lying at the foot of the bed. It was then that the girl saw a figure standing with its head down at the foot of her bed. The scary figure looked as though it was getting closer, but the girl was too frightened to move. She then closed her eyes for a few seconds and opened them, and the figure was gone. Was this Bloody Mary finally deciding to come and haunt her? We may never know. Hope you enjoyed the video, Top 5ers. If you haven't already, check out our other channel, Americano, to enjoy even more amazing list videos. There will be a link in the description, so check it out, as well as our other